Hello there, I'm Tom at Ledgemere Farm, and today I'm going to very quickly show you how to sharpen your chainsaw. And the first question you might have is, well, how do I know when my chain needs to be sharpened? Well, one of the easiest ways to know when your chain needs to be sharpened is that it's going to feel like it takes a little bit more effort to cut, and you're going to see that you don't have the number of chips coming out or sawdust being made out of your chainsaw. Sometimes you'll start to smell it, and you'll see the wood that you're cutting will start to turn a little black, and that means that you're burning the wood, and that's very dangerous to both yourself and to your equipment, because what's happened is you're superheating your steel on your chain, and that weakens the temper in it. So we don't want to overheat the bar, we don't want to overheat the chain, we want to keep it at a consistent temperature. So that being said, the first thing I need is some sort of device to hold your saw in place while you're doing it. And so you could use a stump vise. So stump vise looks like this, and you can get them pretty cheap. I got this one online, I think. And so what you do is you just pound this into a stump or a log, and then you lay your saw in here and clamp it with this. We're up here at the barn, so we're just gonna put it in the big bench vise that I have. As you use your saw, your chain stretches out a little bit, so you're gonna have to tighten it up periodically. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna tighten this up so that I can get a good grip on this. Whenever you buy a saw, it's gonna come with one of these tools here. So I've got my saw firmly in place here in my bench vise. I'm just gonna take this tool right here and loosen these nuts up a little bit. And then you can use the screwdriver end to turn the screw, which will tighten the chain up. So you want to have it snug, but you want it so that it'll still turn. Now if you get it too tight, you'll bind it up. So we want to make sure that there's still the ability for that chain. So once we have that back where we want it, we'll just take this and tighten it back up again real quick. When you look at your chain, sometimes you'll see a notch on it that'll show you the pitch that you want, but this one doesn't have it. So we're going to have to use our file. With this file, you can see it's already got the hash marks on it for your filing. And so what you want to do is you want to have that hash mark be parallel with your saw chain. So this one right here, you can see that the angle is going away from me. So we're going to file from this side that way, one direction. So every one of these teeth that faces away from me like that, we're going to do 3 strokes on. You can look at it carefully, and you know, sometimes you'll see some damage to it, but typically my rule of thumb is 3 strokes, and then we take 1 off the raker. Now the rakers are these right here, and what this does, this controls the depth of how much your teeth will bite into, and it also clears the sawdust away. So you've got a tooth going this way and then one going this way. They're opposing from each other, and so it cuts off one side and then the other. If you sharpen one side more than the other side, your saw will start to make like a half moon one way or the other. And so if that happens, you, like I'd say, it's starting to cut really hard to the left and go in like a, you know, arc to the left. Take your saw and sharpen the other side of that, and that'll rectify that problem. You have to use 2 hands. This is not a one-handed job. I always recommend that you get a file that has the gauge attached with the handles on it. It makes it so much easier. So you start here, and it's 1, 2, 3, and then the next one, 1, 2, 3, and we're following the same pitch, keeping the file perpendicular to the ground, so making a T with the file. So we're always keeping it up against the tooth. Three strokes all the way around here and on this side. And what's going to happen is when you're filing, okay, you need to keep that line parallel to your saw bar, and you don't want to have it going this way or this way. So what you do is you want to have basically perpendicular to the ground, parallel to the saw as far as the way that goes. Now these teeth on here, they're only designed to go one direction, so it's not a sawing method back and forth. It's a once and then lift, once and then lift, once and then lift. And after a little bit of practice, you'll get very good at it. And so you can do it pretty quickly. And once you're done, you just kind of take a look at it. And I have to take my glasses off because I can't see very well. And so I don't see any burrs on that. And what I've got is you take a regular flat file and sew all these rakers. After a few times I've sharpened the chain, I take a flat file and just go across the rakers a little bit, and that will make sure that they always stay a little bit lower than the tooth. Now these teeth, they angle up, well they're angled up in the front and then they taper back. So as you file this down, the more you file down your teeth, the closer the teeth becomes to the chain itself, so you have to take the rakers down more. Now you don't want to take the rakers down too much because then the saw grabs, and you'll see it when you put it in. It'll bite and kind of jerk the saw a little bit. So it's kind of just a little bit. A little bit goes a long way when it comes to filing the chainsaw. Not too much. So take these rakers down just a little bit. And then what I usually do is I put my thumb, or I pinch it, where I just stop filing, and then I move or advance the chain. So like the last one I filed was here, and so I know this is where I'm at. Now, how do I know when to stop? Well, a lot of times when you look at these chains, and I can see it right back here, it looks like there's a spot. Let's see. Maybe I missed it. Let's go through until I find it. You can see where the seam of the chain comes together. Okay, right here, I've got two going the same way. So this is where they stitched it together. You can see actually the color of this is a little different right here. So I've got two of these going the same way. And a lot of times, you know, you figure out where the seam is in the chain because it's one continuous piece that's tied in the middle. And so that's your start and end point. So if you start on this one, and then you keep going until you're at the point where you just started. And I can see the shiny pieces here where I've already been, so we'll advance this. So these teeth are shiny, so I know where I stopped, which was right there. So I can keep going here. Some people say they don't count; they just go. I like to do three. And then I'll try it, see how it cuts, and I can readjust if I need to. Some people have a rule of thumb where every time they go through a tank of gas, they file their chain. Well, I don't really believe in that theory too much. Maybe every third tank or so, but you'll definitely know when your saw's not cutting as well anymore, because for one thing, it'll struggle to cut. You'll feel like you're bearing down on the saw. You're actually trying to do the work. You want the saw to do a lot of the work for you. You know, you've got your teeth here, you put it against the log, so when you're angling, the saw is biting in. But if you feel like you're bearing down on the saw trying to make it work, or you're actually sawing back and forth trying to help it along, for sure you've waited to the point where you really need to sharpen your chain. Additionally, if you start seeing your saw smoking a little bit, you'll see the chain really getting hot. It'll smoke. You're burning the wood as you're cutting through. You need to let that thing cool down, because what happens is you're overheating your steel, and it'll mess up the temper, and so it'll never be as good again. The other thing is you don't want to overheat your bar because you've got a sprocket here, okay, and that'll overheat it, and I've seen these things seize up. I've seen this whole thing turn black. You want to always make sure your oiler is working well. Make sure you have, when you fuel up, you put the oil to it. And a lot of times right after you just have fueled up, you can gun it a couple times, and you'll see some oil hit the ground. So you'll know that that's happening. But anyway, I'm gonna finish up this chain, and then I'm gonna turn the chainsaw around and go the other way, and then I'll go try it, and I'm sure it'll be fine. But a couple of key points just to take away: get yourself one of these devices right here, and they're readily available. They're very inexpensive. Gives you really good control over it. I don't believe in freestyle with just the file. This right here, just looking at it, I always have the correct angle, and you just want to make sure that you're perpendicular so that you are not sawing at an angle. And take a little bit off the rakers. I know if you go put a brand new chain in, you're not going to start on the rakers right away. This is usually, you know, 3 or 4 filings down the road where you know for a fact that you've worked some of that tooth back. And so they have these depth gauges. So here's your depth gauge, and some people swear by them. I never use them. You put it on here, and so this shows you your tooth, and then it shows you where your raker is. And so you can take the flat file and slide it across this and take out your raker. But I don't use them. I don't like them. It's not necessary in my mind, but if you have one, you can try it until you get familiar with it. And so anyway, hopefully that's been helpful. If you have any questions, please comment down below. But it's really a simple, easy process, and I don't want to overcomplicate it. So practice makes perfect in a lot of things, and this is one of the things that definitely, after you've done it a few times, you'll figure it out and you'll be good at it. But I don't believe in the electric grinders. Some people will they'll take the chain off and they'll grind it down, then they don't take the rakers, and so the chain doesn't cut that well, or they grind too much and they take the temper out of the chain. It's just old school is the where it's at. So appreciate you watching, and if you haven't already, take a moment and subscribe to the channel. We'll talk to you next time, and take care.